In this, our third talk segment, we're going to check out the life and legend of another obscure pope who would become a saint, Saint Callistus. Now, Callistus was born a slave in Rome, circa 170 A.D. Not exactly a promising start, but Callistus would one day rise up the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church, first as a deacon, then as the Bishop of Rome, the Pope. Now, his master, Callistus, was attached to the imperial household. This is during the time of Emperor Commodus. Commodus is known as the Mad Gladiator Emperor. Commodus was the son of the great Marcus Aurelius. Now, boy, I'm having trouble with this guy's name. Carphophorus, the master of Callistus, was both a kindly man and a Christian. And under his influence, the young Callistus also becomes a member of the faith. Now, his master thinks highly of Callistus and puts him in charge of a business venture, a type of bank for Christians. One day, Carphophorus asks to see the accounts, but unfortunately Callistus has somehow managed to lose all the money. He possibly embezzled the cash. We don't really know. But either way, he runs away. Callistus is captured at the city of Porto on a cargo ship and brought back to Rome. He is found guilty and is sentenced to run on a giant treadmill until he drops or dies of exhaustion. This is a slave's punishment. But his creditors, who are all Christians, petition the prefect for mercy. They like the young slave and don't want to see him die. They also believe that Callistus will eventually recover the money. Callistus is released, but kept under strict watch by the Roman authorities. He finds this rather intolerable and seeks death as a way of escape. Now, one Sabbath, the young slave storms around the Roman synagogue, insulting all the Jews he can find. He carries his improprieties into the place of worship, the synagogue itself, and arouses the congregation. Now, of course, a fight breaks out, and Callistus is promptly arrested for brawling. Now, there's a variation in this legend. In some tellings of the tale, Callistus blames the Jews for his loss, his monetary loss. In other versions, he tries to collect old debts. Either way, he once again finds himself before the prefect. Now, the prefect wonders what's he going to do with this excitable young boy. The prefect decides to sentence Callistus to hard labor on the island of Sardinia, where Callistus undergoes a deep spiritual awakening and begins to show compassion for others, even his Roman captors. He is eventually given amnesty and released. All Christians were released due to the insistence of Marcia. Marcia is the mistress of Emperor Commodus and a Christian herself. Now, there's a variation in the tale here. In some tellings of the legend, Callistus is reputed to have tricked his way onto the amnesty list. Either way, his health was so weakened by his labors in Sardinia that Pope Victor I gives Callistus a monthly allowance, and Callistus is sent to the city of Antium to recover. Now, Pope Victor I, rules from around 189 to 198 AD. Victor was African by birth and a very vigorous, powerful, and authoritative pontiff. He was a great upholder of the Western tradition over the Eastern, and actually excommunicated the churches of Asia Minor over the controversy. There's a controversy over the date of the celebration of Easter, and he excommunicates all the churches of Asia Minor. Now, back in Rome, Callistus gets he's given his freedom by his master. Now, Pope Zephyrus appoints Callistus to be the superintendent of the public Christian burial ground by the Via Appia. This is around 198 AD, give or take, 198, 199. Now, the burial chambers, which is now called the Cemetery of Callistus, also contains the papal crypt, where the bishops of Rome were interred. The popes from Zephyrnius to Epiphanes are buried there. Now, Callistus does a good job as the superintendent of the cemetery. He extends and unifies the burial grounds and brings isolated private portions into communal possession. Now, this is perhaps the first property in land held by the Christian church. Callistus becomes a very close friend, and eventually he becomes a counselor to Pope Zephyrnius. Zephyrnius sits on the papal throne from around 198 to 217 AD. Now, Zephyrnius lacks the strong character of Pope Victor I, the vigorous exercise of authority that his predecessor possessed. And Zephyrnius is easily dominated by others. But because of his hard work and diligence, Callistus rises to become a deacon. And when Zephyrnius dies, he is elected pope in his place. Callistus becomes a very progressive pope during a time of political infighting in the fledgling Christian church. He is bitterly attacked by his main rival in the papal election, Saint Hippolytus. He's attacked both on doctrinal and disciplinary grounds. Callistus, as I mentioned, he's very progressive. He readmits repentant murderers, adulterers, and fornicators, and recognizes and performs marriages between free people and slaves. He feels that they're the same, that a slave and a free person is the same in the eyes of God. And he welcomes converts with open arms. To Callistus, mortal sin is not enough in itself. It's not a good reason. It's not sufficient reason to deny the Holy Sacrament as long as a person does public penance. Now, to Callistus, a person's sins should be forgiven, and they should be welcomed back into the church with open and loving arms. Callistus was very unpopular with a faction of the Christian hardliners who are led by Saint Hippolytus. They think that he's too liberal and lenient and shockingly lax. There's a schism within the church. This is led by Saint Hippolytus, and he's proclaimed the new pope. Hippolytus is in fact the first anti-pope. Saint Hippolytus calls Callistus a heretic who is opposed to traditional Christian theological values and views. Now, a riot breaks out, Christian versus Christian, and according to tradition, Callistus dies in this riot. The controversial saint was, according to tradition, killed by being thrown down a well. But the exact details of his death are unknown. Now, the church of Santa Maria Travestare in Rome was built on the site of a tavern that Callistus was a frequent patron of. Now, this church contains a very ancient well that's far older than the structure itself. And tradition tells us that this tavern, that is now a church, was the site of Callistus' death. But we really don't know. 3 days later, 3 days after Callistus is murdered, a priest, Asturias, recovers Callistus's body from the well and buries the remains at night on the Via Aurelian. There's no burial in the papal crypt. This just isn't possible right now. Astutius is later arrested for his action and killed by being thrown off a bridge into the Tiber River. Now, in the 9th century AD, the earthly remains of Callistus are considered valuable saintly relics, and they're brought to the church of Santa Maria Travestare, the legendary site of his death. Now, his feast day is October 14th, and he is the patron saint of cemetery workers. Saint Callistus was, in fact, the first pope to be commemorated as a martyr after St. Peter. All right, with that thought, we're going to take another musical break. When we